Hey guys, it's Skyler, and this week's vlog topic is stereotypes within the LGBT plus community. I'm going to take a few characteristic ones that I've heard about transgenderism and transgender persons and debunk the myths that are pretty common around the general society. The first one is one that I've mentioned a few times before, and that's that sex and gender are not the same thing. The truth about this one is that your sex is what you're born as, male or female, based on chromosomes and your biological reproductive organs. Your gender, however, is a psychological, emotional, and sometimes spiritual interpretation and perception of how you are as far as male, female, or other. The second one is that people who are transgender are crazy. This is a little iffy because currently in the DSM-4 text revision, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, which is what psychologists use to diagnose mental disorders, gender identity disorder is considered a mental illness. However, in the DSM-5, which comes out, I believe, this month, the disorder is being replaced by gender dysphoric disorder. Dysphoria being the extreme discomfort and pain felt when gender identity and physical appearance don't match or they're contradictory. Of course, there's going to be very many more symptoms and side effects and everything as far as the actual disorder goes. But for our purposes, transgender persons are not crazy or insane or anything. They're completely normal. Well, some could be crazy, but that's not a transgender thing. That's not a gender identity thing. That's a that person thing. Yeah. The third is that people who are transgender are confused, especially if they identify as gender fluid or agender or something. If someone in general society accepts transgenderism as, okay, you can be male to female or female to male, but someone doesn't lie on either end of that, they can often be labeled as confused as, oh, you just don't know what you are. This isn't the case. While it is confusing to figure out your gender identity, once someone has kind of found themselves on the spectrum, the loop-de-loop, the what have you, they're not confused. It can be confusing, but they aren't confused in the sense that they are wrong about not being their biological sex. They're confused in the fact that gender is confusing in general. The next one I want to discuss is that people who are transgender are just cross-dressers or transvestites. This really isn't the case. Someone who is transgender is honestly disconnected from the sex that they're born as. Someone who's a transvestite or a cross-dresser does not necessarily identify with the gender that they're portraying. They merely like wearing the opposite sex's clothing. I heard a joke the other day that I thought was pretty appropriate for this. What's the difference between a trans woman and a transvestite? A trans woman comes home to take her bra off. A transvestite goes home to put her bra on. So that kind of shows you the difference between transvestism and transgenderism. Number 5 is that surgery or hormones are necessary for someone to be transgender. This is where transsexual and transgender often get confused. Transgender is basically an umbrella term when your gender identity and your biological sex are not the same. It's the entire loop-de-loop spectrum, what have you. Transsexual, however, is someone who is transgender and is actively or plans to actively or has already transitioned to the opposite sex. It's someone who does full surgery, takes hormones, has completely transitioned. Someone who's transgender may not entirely transition. They may not get surgery. They may not get top and bottom surgery. They may only do hormones. They may not do hormones at all. Transgender is about the gender identity and perception, whereas transsexual is gender identity, perception, and complete physical transformation. The last one is that people in the transgender community who are not, fully transgender or transsexual rather, are just special snowflakes, that they want the attention to be unique and all the glorification and whatnot, especially if someone is has an identity that's atypical, such as agender or gender fluid, or bigender or anything of that nature. It's not a special snowflake thing, especially if they use pronouns that are uncommon, such as ze or even they pronouns, which I use. It's not a special snowflake, give me attention, I want to be unique and special, pay attention to me kind of thing. It's something that makes us feel comfortable and allows us to feel safe and understand ourselves. So we're not necessarily looking for attention and special privilege or anything. It's just something that we found that helps us cope with the mistake we were born as. Oh, that was probably a really inappropriate way to phrase that. I apologize for the way I phrased that. It's just best thing I could come up with at the time. So that's about the 6 or so most common stereotypes I hear as far as transgenderism. As always, if you have any questions or concerns or want to hear more about any particular topic, go ahead and leave a comment or question down below, and we'll see what we can do. Until then, I will see you next time. Bye! Loud like a T-Rex.